Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to your daily dose of amplified impact. So, a couple days ago, I got a question from this guy who I just met a couple days before that, and we've been working together on this project. He's a videographer, very smart guy, very talented, really good with a camera. And he asked me, what should I be doing at this point in my life? He's young, just got out of college, maybe 24 years old, I think, maybe 25. And he's like, what should I be doing right now to kind of like set myself up, like get to where you are maybe someday? And I get this question a lot, from young people. I think the question is a smart one in the sense of like you want to learn from the people who are maybe further along than you, a little bit older. They have wisdom and some insights that maybe you don't see quite yet. Like where should you be putting your time and energy? And I got a lot of different ways you could answer this question, but the one that came to mind for me recently at that moment was it was something that's tied to the top of my head because I'd seen it on Instagram recently where there's just all these people who are creating these thought leadership platforms and personal brands and putting out a ton of content, but you can tell that they don't have a lot of real world experience. They haven't really done very much. They might have done a lot within the context of the thing that they're talking about. Maybe like they're building an e-commerce business or they've, written books or something like that. But there's just like this lack of depth and intrigue with a lot of what I'm seeing is like a lot of people on the social medias these days. And I was reflecting on like the people that I really like to follow and what makes them so interesting is the fact that they're just so multivariate. They've done so many different things. They have so many adventures, so many stories that they can share. And I was reflecting, like, if you're going to build like a personal brand and a thought leadership platform, if you really want to like separate yourself from everybody else, I think that's one of the things you have to have. Like, you have to be interesting. You have to have things about you or things that you've done in your life that make people want to tune in. And so, as I was reflecting on this kid's question, and he's not a kid, he's a full grown man at this point. Like, dude, I was watching him do some squats the other day, like putting up 315 for reps. I was like, this guy's, got some strong quads. When I think about the question, okay, so what should I be doing right now for the young hustlers out there who want to start building their personal brand and start building authority and whatnot? I think before you start doing that, you need to go out there and you need to do more cool shit. Like when you're young is the time to, especially in your 20s, like you have so much time ahead of you. Your time horizon is like so much longer than you even realize at that point. I think you should be spending your 20s just doing a lot of stuff, trying to do as many cool things as you can. In a lot of cases, like when I was in my 20s, I did not do this by intention at all. But I was kind of a Peter Pan where I was trying to like shirk society's expectations of, what it meant to be a functioning member of society. And I was like, no, I'm just going to go off and do my own thing. Nobody can tell me what to do. I'm not going to go corporate. I'm not going to live that life. I don't care about any of this. So I was like, out there just rock climbing all the time, I was snowboarding. I was just out there having adventures, doing a lot of traveling. And through that process, maybe I Peter Pan just a little bit too hard for a little bit too long. And so by the time I was like in my late 20s, entering into my 30s, I didn't have a lot of like real world utility in terms of like my ability to add value to the world. So that was a different conversation. However, what I did have was a lot of stories, a lot of experiences, a lot of like epic adventures that I only recently started to realize like how much of a differentiating factor that can be when you're sitting down with people and you're sharing stories of like, oh, this time I was over in Thailand, I was on this beach doing this thing, rock climbing over the ocean, there's all this garbage on the beach. Like, you can tell that story, or you can tell about the time that you like had a run-in with a bear in Yosemite. Like, those things are kind of interesting, right? And so my number one feedback to young people is don't try to have it all planned out right now and try and like just fit within inside the box, because you don't know which box you're going to fit inside of right now. So use that time that you have when you're young and you don't really have a lot of responsibility, a lot of things tying you down, and try to avoid being tied down for as long as possible. Like, don't take on liabilities and don't buy a house, don't buy expensive things, because the more you own, the more they own you. And it makes it very hard to go out there and do adventurous things. But I do think like your 20s, you should be spent going out there and just doing more cool shit. Like, do stuff for the sake of just doing it, for the story. Like, you know what, this sounds like a horrible adventure, but I'm going to have a really cool story to come out of it. I think if nothing else, like, you're going to be a very interesting person. So I think that's one of the keys to like building a really successful personal brand, a thought leadership platform, or whatever. That's the thing that you want to do. However, if you're not interested in doing that, if you're just interested in living your best life, like a life of amplified impact, something that I've noticed for myself personally in the last couple of years is that as I've gotten older and I focused more on building businesses and investing and like being an adult, so to speak, I've had less and less time to go out there on adventures and do epic things. And one of the things my girlfriend Jamie was observing, she's like, when you're not having adventures, when you're not going out there and like feeling like you're living an epic life, like I notice it in your behavior and the way that you move through the world. And like, you just kind of get in the dumps, you kind of get depressed and I had never really observed that, mainly because I'm stupid and I don't stop to like self-reflect sometimes. But once you pointed it out, I was like, that's absolutely right. Like I used to just live and breathe adventure. And now as I get older and more static, like I don't have as many opportunities, or I'm not taking as many opportunities to go out there and adventure. And so this wasn't something that I was prioritizing in my own life. And it was really starting to have a negative effect on my own libido, on my own mojo. So this is something that with Jamie's, help, I've been trying to be more intentional about building into my life. For instance, like going on a surfing trip with my buddy Ross a couple months back. Like let's make sure that we're getting out there at least once a month, maybe even more frequently if possible, and doing things that when I look back, I can say, man, that was epic. That was awesome. And because I think an epic life is just the summation of epic years, and epic years are the product of epic days, and epic days are just the product of doing epic things. And so, regardless of what you're trying to do, if you're trying to build a brand, that's cool. Like there's actually utility to being interesting. But if you're just trying to live a life of like amplified impact and get the most out of this thing, then I think a part of that is like tapping into that raw, visceral sense of wild and wonder that that can be kind of like glossed over and a little bit muted in today's like society and living an urban lifestyle where everything's just kind of like the same every day, and we're so comfortable, we're never really pushed outside of our comfort zone, so to speak. So I think finding opportunities to do that, because that's one of the things that I've seen a high correlation with really successful people, is they're like so comfortable getting outside their comfort zone, and they make a practice of it. So the more you do it, the more comfortable you get going out there into the wilderness. And I think that makes for really robust, autonomous, badass human beings. So that's my advice to you. If you're young, or even if you're old, depending on wherever you are on the spectrum right now, just go do more cool shit. If nothing else, you'll have done some cool shit, and that's really cool. So hopefully you got some value out of this. If you guys don't know who I am, I'm Anthony Vicino. I'm just a guy who at one point in my life, I lived in the back of a van. And then I built some businesses, started investing in real estate, and now I'm on this mission just to try and share the message of what helped me get from there to get to here. And hopefully it brings you some value. If it does, do me a favor, just go share it with your friends or anybody that you think would get some value out of it. Maybe leave a review. That's really cool too. And we'll catch you in the next episode.